Hey all, this is Mrs. Gross, and I'm going to go over measuring circles with you today. And so, first of all, you need to make sure that you have your measuring circles guided notes with you. Should look like this. And so, if you'll fold those and put them in your red notebooks, pause the video to make sure that they're in there, and then come back and pause it when you're ready to move on. Okay, so for measuring circles, the main things that we need to know how to do are circumference and area. But then in order to know how to do circumference and area, you also need to make sure that you have the radius and the diameter. So we're going to go over a few words. The first word here is the distance around the outside of the circle, and that's the circumference. So put that in. Circumference is the distance around the outside of the circle. And the formula for finding the circumference is pi times diameter. And I don't know the fancy thing for pi, so I'm going to put in pi. But actually, let me see if I can put this in for you all. Special characters. It's this one. Okay, so that's your pi symbol. And so if you will put in it looking like that, pi times the diameter. And so I don't want to put an X. I want to put in, sorry guys, insert. Special characters. Should just be the dot. Oh well. All right, times diameter. And so, and then we'll figure out what diameter is. Diameter is D, and the diameter is the distance all the way across the circle through the center. Okay. And while we're over here, let's go ahead and put in R, and R is radius. And radius is the distance halfway across the circle. All right, and then next we want the amount of space that's inside the circle, and that is area. Area is the amount of space inside the circle. And the formula for area is, I'm going to go ahead and just copy that pi button. Pi, again, and the approximation for pi is 3.14. And then we're going to say times the radius to the second power. The radius to the second power. And the way you all put in second power, it's like the squared button. I'm trying to remember exactly how to make special characters. That's it, but I don't want millimeter squared. Anyway, so what I'm going to do is you're going to put the little squared thing in, and I'm going to put like this, and that's what it means. So pi times the radius squared, okay? So if we look at the example here, to the left right here, the 7, the radius is given. Radius in there. And then in the example to the right, it's hard to put those in there, guys. And in the right, all the way, the distance all the way across, that's the diameter. The diameter is given. And if you can't write it in there all the whole way, I'm sorry. Okay, and so the other things we need to do is r squared. And what r squared is r times r. So r squared is not r times 2. It is r times r. And that is a big thing to remember, okay? And then for pi, the approximation for pi is 3.14. Sometimes they're going to ask you to approximate it, and you're going to put in 3.14. Sometimes they're going to ask it in terms of pi, and they're just going to leave the pi button on there. And then remember that diameter, if you are given the radius and you want the diameter, you're going to go, let's see, I've got 2 of these going on here. All right, the diameter is 2 times pi. That's not true. 2 times the radius. And then the radius, if you need to know what the radius is and you're given the diameter, it is going to be half of that. So the radius would be half of the diameter. Okay, so let's go back over that again. Radius squared is radius times radius. Pi approximation is 3.14. The diameter is twice the radius, 2 times the radius, and you don't even have to put the x in there. You can just put 2r. And then the radius is half the diameter, which would be half of d. Okay? And so if we were using this example here of 7 and we wanted to find the area, we need to remember area is pi times the radius squared. So I'm going to just copy this one and put it right here. So you're going to do the same thing. You're going to write pi times the radius squared here. And we know pi's approximation is 3.14. And we want to multiply that by the radius. And we know the radius here is 7. So we're going to say 7 squared, and 7 squared is 7 times 7. So when you go through and calculate that, you're going to say 3.14 times 7 times 7. So I'm going to use my calculator, 3.14 times 7 times 7. And I know 7 times 7 is 49. So I'm going to do 49 times 3.14, or 3.14 times 49. Now, sometimes you will leave it as 49 pi. Okay, so you might see it like this. I'm going to put it in parentheses, 49. Let me copy that pi symbol again. There you go. So that and that are the same thing. Okay, and then, but I know that but I can go ahead and calculate it out. 3.14 times 49 is 153.86. 153.86. And so that's the approximate answer for the area there. Okay, so then circumference is the next one that we're going to be doing. And remember, circumference is pi times diameter. So I'm going to copy that again. And we're going to put that right here. Right there. Okay. And so then we want to figure out how to find it if we're given the radius. We're given the radius of 7. Well, in order to get the if we've got the radius of 7 and we need the diameter, we just need to double it. So we're going to say pi 3.14 times 7 times 2. So I'm going to say 7 times 2. And 7 times 2 is 14. So we're going to say 3.14 times 14. And then you can do the math. 3.14 times 14 is 43.96. And that's the circumference of this one. Okay. And then we're going to find the area and the circumference of this one right here with the 30. So for area, we need our formula of pi times the radius squared. So I'm going to go back and put this here. I don't know why it keeps moving it all the way up to the top. So here's our formula, pi times the radius squared. So we actually need the radius, but we have the diameter. So we need to figure out what the radius is. Well, if the diameter is 30, the radius is half of that. It's going to be half of 30, which would be 15. So when we plug it in, we're going to put in 3.14 times the radius of 15 squared. So we're going to multiply it by 15 again. Okay, that's how you're going to get that one. And so 15 times 15, that's 225. Yeah, 15 times 15 is 225. So 3.14 times 25. And then when you do the math, I said 225, sorry. 3.14 times 225, and 225 times 3.14 is 706.5. So the approximate value, the approximate area of a circle with a diameter of 30 would be 706.5, and then it's whatever units it is. Put that in there. All right, and then finally, to get the circumference, we need pi times diameter. So let's go ahead and copy that, pi times diameter. Put it over here. All right, and then the circumference would be 3.14. Again, that's the approximation for pi, times the diameter, which you already are given, which is 30. So 3.14 times 30. And so you can just plug it in, 3.14 times 30, and that would be 94.2, which is the circumference of the circle with the diameter of 30. Okay, so pause the video, look at your notes, make sure that they match my notes, and then we're going to go on to the inside. All right, let's go on to the inside of there. And so some of this stuff is the exact same thing that you've already seen, but we're just going to kind of remind ourselves. Circumference. Circumference is the distance around the outside of a circle. Okay, it's the distance around the outside of the circle. So go ahead and put that in right now. And what this is, it is kind of like the perimeter of the circle is what that is. So when you think about the perimeter, it's the distance around, it's like a fence or that kind of thing. The perimeter or the circumference of a circle is like the perimeter of the circle, okay? And so there are two formulas. So on this one, we use the formula for circumference, pi times diameter, and I wanted to use this one because this one gives you the other formula as well. There are two formulas that you can use for circumference. And we use different formulas depending on whether we have the diameter or the radius. So when you put this in, there are two formulas that we use for circumference. Here we go. And we use the different formulas depending on whether the radius or the diameter is given. So go ahead and plug those in. Radius, and then I'm going to use and then this one's going to say diameter. Okay, and here are our two formulas. C, which is circumference, equals pi times diameter, which you just saw, and we went over an example with that. Or if you know the radius, you can do 2 pi r, or you can say 2 r times pi. Just this is kind of how it's written, but it's the same thing. You're doubling really is the radius. You're doubling the radius to get the diameter and multiplying it by pi. So that's why both of those formulas are in there. So if you're given the radius, all you have to do is double it and multiply it by pi. So for example, we have the diameter of 2 feet. And so our formula here is pi times diameter. So we're going to put in approximately 3.14 for pi times the diameter of 2. Okay, and then so they have the formula. So I need to put in pi times diameter. Sorry. 3.14, we can use the pi button, times diameter. And then we're going to substitute 3.14 times 3.14 times 2. And then we're going to solve. We're going to put in 3.14, multiply that by 2, and we get 6.28. Okay. But then in the next example here, we have a radius of 5 feet. The radius is 5 feet, and we are going to use this formula where we're going to double it first. So we're going to use this formula of 2 pi r. So we're going to put the formula in. 2 times, I'm going to put in 3.14 for my pi, times my radius. And then I'm going to substitute 2 times 3.14 times 5. And I don't know why I put a 4 here. I meant to put r. Sorry about that. All right, and so 2 times 3.14 times 5. So when you plug that in, we know that 5 doubled is 10, right? And so if you put in 10 times 3.14, you should get 31.4. And that would be your, and it would be feet squared, feet to the second power, okay? And this one over here, oh, I lied. This is not feet to the second power. It's just feet because you're dealing with circumference. You would only do squared is if you are doing radius times radius. So since we're doing circumference, it's just going to be feet. And this one over here is also going to be feet. So go ahead and we'll put that back in there, okay? On the next one, when we're doing area, that's when we're going to have feet squared because that's going to be when we're multiplying the radius times the radius. All right, so let's go ahead and move on to area of circles. And on area of circles, we have this formula. A equals pi r squared, okay? And so A is the area of the circle. Pi is like 3.14 approximately. R is the radius. And then this 2 is the number times itself. So let's go ahead and plug these in. A is area. Pi, we're going to approximate with 3.14. Radius, we're going to go through that in just a second. And then squared is the number times itself. So plug those in. All right. So the radius is a line that goes across the circle, but it actually goes halfway across the circle, and it goes to the center. So make sure it's going, if it goes all the way across, it's the diameter, but it's going halfway across the circle through the center or to the center. Okay, so when you're putting this one in, this line right here is going to be halfway. Halfway across the circle. And when a line goes all the way across the circle, we talked about what that was before, and that is called the diameter. Okay. All right. And so we know from this that the radius is half the diameter. The radius is half the diameter because the radius is halfway across, whereas the diameter is all the way across. So when you put that in, you're going to put in the radius is half of the diameter. Okay, let's look down here. We're going to do our 2 examples. Okay, so example number 1, we have the radius. So we've got our formula, area equals pi times radius squared. So when you plug this in, we're going to put in pi, we're going to approximate pi, 3.14, times our radius to the second power. And remember, I use that so I don't have to put my little thing in. It takes a little more time. Okay, so now we're going to start substituting in. And remember, pi is 3.14. And then we're going to multiply by our radius, and our radius is 2. And when we multiply the radius, when we square it, we're multiplying it by itself. So it'd be 3.14 times 2 times 2. So to solve that, you're going to do 3.14 times 2 times 2, which would be 3.14 times 4. And when you solve that, 3.14 times 4 is going to give you 12.56. And it's feet. And remember, like I said before, it's feet to the second power because we're multiplying the radius squared. All right, and then the last example here is you got the diameter or the distance all the way across. Well, we need the radius. So we're going to plug in if the distance all the way across is 12, then its radius is 6. So you're going to put a 6 in here. And then we're going to go through the formula again. Area equals pi times radius squared. So 3.14 is our approximate times our radius to the second power. Okay, now we're going to substitute ours in 3.14 times our radius of 6, and we're going to do 6 squared, so 6 times 6. And we know 6 times 6 is 36, so we're going to do 3.14 times 36, and that is 113.04. And this one is inches, our unit's inches, and it's inches to the second power, inches squared. Okay, that is all for the guided notes for this one. I would encourage you to check out the practice that we're going to do on Summit. So look on there for your checkpoints that you need to do. And if you need to rewatch any parts of this video, you can. And if you need any extra help, don't hesitate to reach out. Have a great day.